Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And of course, on this episode, we are talking the 2022 Indianapolis Colts. They are a team that is to be reckoned with, of course, unless they're facing the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville. But hey, I'm gonna leave it out. I'm just kidding. But joining me on this episode to break down the Indianapolis Colts, I have two special guests. My first special guest is a returning guest. He's out there in the Wild Wild West, but he represents for the Indianapolis Colts. That would be the host of the Drop Balls podcast, Mr. Chris Lewis II. What's going on, man?
What's up, Mike, man? Thank you for having me on again, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Hey, he ain't sounding chopped and screwed this time, so we're good. No, I'm kidding, man. That's a joke for anybody listening, but anyway. Of course, my second guest it is her first time on the show. She is a voice you might hear on the Indy Intercept podcast. And of course, if you come incorrect about her Indianapolis Colts, she might have something to say about that. So I want to introduce everybody to the incredible Meg.
What's going on? What's going on? Of course, always.
Man, I see Lou mad because I ain't never do that kind of introduction for him. But I'm kidding.
I mean, I am the Megan Hall. I just want to put it out there. So.
Oh, I was trying to figure out some way to kind of do that announcement today, but hey, we worked it out. But let's get into the business that is the Indianapolis Colts. Now, of course, the season was 9-8 last year. Didn't make the playoffs. We're not going to talk about that too much because pretty much everybody's talked about that this all season. But we are going to talk about there's a new sheriff in town at quarterback. Now, of course, the Indianapolis Colts have had 5 different quarterbacks in the last 5 years. That would be Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett. That would be, Phillip Rivers. Then you had Carson Wentz. They want to probably fly over that one. And then you have now Mr. Matt Ryan. So how do you all think things are going so far with Mr. Matt Ryan? I'm going to go to you first, Meg.
Oh, you're gonna put me on the spot, of course. All right. So I've talked about this at length, and I'll explain it here. But I'm actually really excited. I think I add a little bit of different perspective because I actually live in Atlanta, so I've seen a lot of Matt Ryan over the years. So you can imagine a Colts fan living among Falcons fans. It's been very interesting, that transition, and I think we've had a lot of Falcons fans come over, because they love Matt, so they just, hey, you could be a Colts fan too, I guess. But to answer the question, I honestly think that this has been a really good move for the Colts. Like, they kind of lucked into it, pun intended, but but they kind of lucked into it really and truly. Like, after having Carson on the roster, that was probably the best case scenario, honestly. I think for the Colts, they needed someone to kind of come in and be a little bit of that leader for the locker room. We've seen it many times in the offseason, people writing, Colts fans, kind of ranting about how the leadership difference is night and day with Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz. And that's not a knock to Carson, but it's just the way that Matt comes in. He commands the room. He certainly is sewing into his wide receivers and his young tight ends. Coaching them up as they're going through practice and through training camp, stopping plays if they aren't right. Like, yeah, everything is going to be pristine, and I appreciate it about him. He demands excellence, and I think the Colts will be better for it.
All right. Sounds like they have somebody similar to a particular gentleman in the past. Of course, that gentleman has rings and things, but we're not going to bring him up. That was actually the sheriff as well, but. I'm going to pose a different question to you, C. Lou. All right. He's the sheriff right now. He's got them all going, things like that. But how do you kind of see his leadership kind of panning out as the season goes on with this crew of new characters he's with?
What you mean by, like, how do I see it panning out? Like,
how do you see them kind of accepting and growing in the leadership and direction he's trying to take them?
Oh, I mean, to be honest, like, even if you see it during the the preseason and everything. Like if you watched any of the Colts videos that they put out and stuff like that, it seems like the team, like they're all in. Like the way he's come in and he's commanded the offense and just commanded the team, they're all sold. You've seen Naheem Hines come out and say stuff about it. You've seen Michael Pittman come out and say stuff about it. Even Frank Wright has said numerous things about it, just with like from Frank Wright, let him take over practice pretty much and let him run practice. And he said that Matt Ryan came out there and he sped up practice. He pretty much had the offense on go, 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 go when it was 7-on-7, 11-on-11 and stuff like that. So as long as the leadership continues and I guess the wins, come with it as well, I don't see any reason for anybody on the team not to buy in. It seems like they've all bought in already just because they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder from last year. And then going into this year, seeing the change in the quarterback position and what Matt Ryan brings to that quarterback room, they all see the light pretty much, and they've seemed to brought in, and they're riding right along with them.
All right, Meg. Do you have anything to add to what CeeLo just dropped to us?
No, I think he pretty much said it.
Yeah. Hey, talking to two people that actually know their team very, very well, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, you talked about the quarterback that was getting brought in, but we didn't talk about what's not there, which, a lot of people have kind of maybe glossed over it sometimes, perhaps. But what I will say is that the Colts, they have some question marks at the wide receiver and the tight end position. Now, of course, everyone can say Michael Pittman Jr. and then potentially the best wide receiver in the division. Well, personally, I know CeeLo has heard me say this. I don't know if you heard me say this before, Meg, but I think Brandon Cooks is the best receiver in the AFC South. But
I knew that's where you were going. Yeah.
But I digress. So now I'll keep us on track here. But what I would say is that, besides Michael Pittman, you have a lot of question marks. Alec Pierce is a rookie, still trying to get acclimated. You got Paris Campbell. You got the health questions there. You've got, just a lot of different things. Naheem Hines, is he going to play in the slot a little bit more? Is he going to be at the running back position? Jelani Woods, is he going to get on the field a little bit more and just be in the red zone? You've got a lot of different questions. Granson, there's just a lot of questions there. So how do you all kind of feel about your wide receiver core and tight end core to start out the season? I'm going to go with you first, CeeLo.
Yeah, so personally, I do think we need to add a veteran wide receiver. I like our young group that we have, and Paris Campbell is, as I've always said, 15 games in 3 years isn't a good look. This is a contract year, so maybe, I don't know, maybe his body agrees with what he's doing this season, and it stays healthy. But it's a big ask, as from what we've seen the past 3 years. It's a big ask for him to stay healthy. But from all Colts fans, that's what we're hoping, because we know the talent is there when he's on the field. We see the talent when he's on the field. It's just a matter of when he's on the field. As far as Alec Pierce, if anybody watched the preseason games, it's preseason. But one of the things I do look at, especially when it comes to young receivers and young players, is just if they're getting acclimated to the speed of the game, his route running, him getting off the line, beating man coverage, if he can create separation, different things like that, because that lets me know what I can kind of expect from him during the season. And if anybody watched the 3 preseason games that we played, he played in every single last one of them. And every game he progressed. Even throughout the first game against Buffalo, you saw him progress, every snap. With every snap, you saw his progression. And I guess I would say every drive, because going to the sideline, talking with Reggie, talking with the offensive coordinator, you see some things changed in a little bit. One of the things with him, I just want his route running to get better, which, running out routes, running dig routes, you see him slipping in and out of his breaks sometimes. And that's just, that comes with body control and being able to break down and getting in and out of your breaks. So I think that'll come with time, especially working with Reggie Wayne. But I see a lot of promise in our receiving core. They're young. They're hungry. But I would like to add just a veteran wide receiver that can kind of help them. Reggie, he's a former receiver with the Colts. I get that, but it's somebody that can actually be on the field with them and help them go through things on the field. I think would be big for those receivers. hopefully Michael Pittman goes in or grows into that number one role this season, especially with Matt Ryan. As far as the tight ends, we lost Drew Ogletree. He was promising throughout throughout camp. He looked very promising, and we lost him to a torn ACL. He was one of the rookies we drafted this year out of Youngstown State. I always get that name.
It's Youngstown State. You got it right.
Yeah, so we drafted him this year, and he looked promising until he tore his ACL. So hopefully Jelani Woods can step up. He's still he's raw. He's only played tight end pretty much 1 year out of in college. So he's still a very raw tight end. Kylan Granson, Mo Ali Cox, hopefully they can do what we need them to do. But I would like to add a veteran wide receiver, but we'll see what happens as the season goes on.
Meg, I'd like to get your thoughts on what you think about the wide receiver core as well, because C. Lou said definitely a mouthful when it came to the the wide receivers and the tight ends for the team.
Let me put my mic on here, but yeah, I think C. Lou did a really great job of kind of saying some of the same things that I've been saying for a little bit. Yeah, the wide receiver room is very, very young, along with the tight ends, and that gives me a lot of concern. I think if that is going to be the Achilles heel of the Colts, it could be how young that they are at those positions. Some of those key skill positions, you need solid depth, which we have depth, but it's unproven. So if you look at the wide receiver group, I mean, outside of MPJ, there's not a whole lot there. If you take away Paris and the injuries, there's 2 touchdowns and 20 receptions between the remaining guys. So, I think that's going to give anybody a little bit of pause. And you've heard Chris Ballard talk about, how he believes in these young wide receivers. They're athletic, and I hear him, but I also know what I see on the field. And I get very, very concerned when you go against these kind of elite defenses. Are we going to be able to win our matchups? I'm not so sure. And I hope that as the season goes on that we will. But right now, to Celi's point, they did get better throughout the preseason. You saw that. But, when the lights are really on and the games count, that's really where I look to see if they're going to improve. And really and truly, I'll probably get on my soapbox about the tight end position. I've been banging the table for at least 3 seasons now that we needed, more depth behind what was Jack Doyle and Mo Ali Cox. They went out and drafted Kylan Granson, which was great, but then they didn't really use him or utilize him as well as they should have last year. So I'm hoping that he will have essentially what should be a breakout season for him. And then outside of that, Jelani is very, very raw, and that also gives me a little bit of pause there. So, I mean, I think he could definitely be a red zone target, but I wouldn't expect too much else out of him in the first couple of games until he kind of gets his feet underneath him.
Yeah. I think Jelani is going to end up being the star of that tight end group. I should say.
Too.
Just as long as he just needs a little bit of time to get himself acclimated. So I definitely think he's a star in the making. I definitely think he is.
And I do want to add one thing really quick. One of the wide receivers I am looking forward to seeing this year is Michael Strawn. Hopefully he continues to develop. He's the big 6'5" receiver that runs like a 4.3, 4.4. He looked good in preseason, the game that he played, but hopefully, as he continues to develop, hopefully he can move into like a big role for us as well.
Definitely be interesting to see. You don't want him out there. You said he's 6'5" and he runs about a 4.3. Now, you want him being a wide receiver. You don't want him being out there, kind of practicing to be Usain Bolt, if you know what I'm saying.
Nah,
just
that's
running a route. Just running track practice out there in the field. You don't want him doing that.
Yeah, but, he can high point the ball, but it's a lot more. It's a lot more than that.
Definitely. Now, of course, one key element that's going to go along with the wide receiver core and the growth of the wide receiver core, and you mentioned it, Reggie Wayne. That's going to be huge for them with his experience and the things he can teach them. But of course, none of this happens with the running the football or catching the football without the offensive line. Of course, last year, a few different things happened. You had Eric Fisher out there, which I know y'all don't want to talk about, but he was there. He had Quentin Nelson. Of course, he had an injury. Came back from that, played, did well. Of course, you moved on from Eric Fisher. You got a couple other guys in there. So, even though the offensive line is pretty strong, there's still maybe some question marks to go along there. What are your thoughts on your starting offensive tackles going into this season? I'm gonna start with you, man.
Oh, well, that's a really good question. I think this. So at the left tackle position, I have a lot of questions about the durability of Matt Pryor. He's very inconsistent from what I've seen, and I think you're going to see Bernard Raymond kind of challenge him for that starting left tackle spot. He's still very raw, and I think he's still got some growing to do. But my projection is that probably by midseason, you'll see him, push Pryor out of that starting spot. On the other side, I mean, I think you've got great talent, obviously, in Braden Smith, but the depth behind him is what really gives me also pause. Colts just picked up, I think Luke, and I'm probably going to butcher the last name, but Tenuta, I think was the last name, from the Bills earlier in the week, and trying to attempt to bolster up those tackle positions, but yeah, I've talked about this before, and I'm probably going to sound like a broken record for anybody who's watched me, but like bargain Ballard strikes again is kind of what what I've been saying. We've sat on our hands for quite some time in investing in the O line, and I get it. Like he is very intentional about the way that he spends his money. You're not going to see him, essentially pull a Ryan Grigson and let's throw all the cash that we can find at someone. That's not his MO. However, I think that because he's so hesitant to spend the money, that often also becomes like where his downfall is. You need proper depth behind the O line. There's plenty of folks, on the market that we could have, taken a look at, and who knows, maybe I'm speaking from, a different lens here, but there's no one that we brought on. So even if those conversations are being had, there was no one that we brought on. And bringing in Eric Fisher after injury was quite an experiment. So from that point on, I definitely have been on the bandwagon of we need proper talent. And I had no issue with necessarily, finding and growing your own per se, but certainly we need some veteran depth, and that I think is probably going to be it could be an issue long term this season if we don't get it situated.
Yeah, I definitely looked at the interior offensive line, and I noticed that in terms of backups, didn't really have anybody listed there, so that was kind of it's kind of frightening to have that.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no one behind Quentin Nelson for starters.
Right, and that's I will say this though, Dennis Kelly can kind of play the guard, so that could happen because Dennis Kelly is played in Philadelphia and then also played in Tennessee, so definitely familiar with that guy. But C. Lou, do you have a little trepidation trotting out there, Mr. Pryor and Braden Smith out there as your offensive tackles this season?
As far as Braden Smith, not really. Like Meg said, Braden Smith is good. Like Braden Smith is fine. It's just the depth behind him that we don't really have. We have Dennis Keller, we have Luke Tenuta. He's a rookie. And I mean the Bills let him go. So that might say a lot about his skill set or whatever, or maybe the Bills just didn't need him because they have enough, so there's really no telling. But I mean, with Braden Smith, I don't have any issues with him. It's the left tackle position with Matt Pryor. He doesn't really have a lot of experience at left tackle, and even watching some of the preseason games, he struggled a little bit out there. Raymond, I do think at some point will probably take his position, but like Meg said again, he's kind of raw. And he still has some things to work on, but he's very athletic. If you watch him in preseason, he's very athletic and he can move his feet. So I did like what I saw from him in some of our preseason games. And once he got his hands on people, like you weren't getting off like that. He locked in. So I like what I saw from Raymond. He is older for a rookie. I believe he's like 24. So he's kind of older for a rookie, but I mean, that's fine. It's just a lack of depth that I have. We let go of, what was it, Chris Reed, Meg? I believe that's his name. We let go of him.
Chris Reed.
And he provided some good snaps for us when Quentin Nelson was out, or when we had when we had Glowinski out or something like that. Chris Reed provided some good reps at the guard position. He was able to play both sides of both sides, left guard, right guard. And not having him, that kind of hurts in my opinion, because he was a solid backup. I guess they really believe in Will Fries. I don't know. I really don't know. I think Luke will kind of be like that swing tackle where, he can play left tackle, right tackle, depending on, the need. But it's my issue, like I said, is just the lack of depth that we have behind some of our offensive linemen.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. One guy that's also going to be interesting to watch for the Indianapolis Colts is Mr. Shaquille Leonard. He hubbed the chop, meaning chopping the ball out and causing forced fumbles. I believe he caused about 8 of those last year. But, he definitely is going to be a guy to watch for this year for a different reason, because he's coming off back surgery. And, there's question marks about, how ready he's going to be for the season. I'm going to come to you, C. Lou. What kind of thoughts or question marks or just feelings do you have about Shaquille Leonard coming into this year? The back surgery, the issue with people talking about is he going to be ready or not? You're going to practicing for a little bit. I mean, what are your kind of feelings about him going into this season and being able to stay healthy the entire season?
Yeah, I mean, so the back surgery was really to kind of fix the issue with his calf. I guess there was something going on with his back that caused him to have those calf issues that he had last year. And I mean, he was playing on one leg last year and he did what he did last season. As far as him coming in this year with the health issues, or, is he ready to play? He's still questionable for game 1, I believe. But I know you listened to my show from last night, or the show that I posted today. I mean, I do have question marks on is he ready? He's been practicing. They seem to like where he's at right now. I don't think he's 100%, but I would probably say he's probably anywhere between 80 to 90% at this point. And me personally, I would take a 80 to 90% Shaq Leonard all day, every day. He also, I mean, he's also said like he feels the best he's felt since his rookie year. So I mean, if that's like for real, like if that's really how he feels, then I mean, who am I to question where he's at and will he be healthy? I know sometimes players just come out and say certain things, but I don't know. Like I said, if he says that's where he is, then I can't really question it. He knows his body better than I do. So
Yeah.
I just hope he's ready, man. I hope he's ready, because we expect big things out of him. Everybody says he's one of the best linebackers in the game. So I expect big things out of him this season.
Well, we shall indeed see. Of course, I said I was Superman last night and I ain't wake up in the costume, man. So hey, that's all I'm gonna say. Sometimes people say what they say. But as far as the rest of the linebacking core, Bobby Okereke, I think I said it right. I'm trying, Bobby.
Okereke.
I'm trying, Bobby. But they do have him there as well, and he definitely made some plays last year. So, how are you feeling about the guys outside of Shaquille Leonard to kind of be his reinforcement out there, Meg?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to kind of look back at training camp. When Shaquille was out, EJ Speed kind of stepped into that role. And I think the biggest thing that is going to be necessary for them is to be vocal and talk to each other on the field. Like, I think people underestimate just how critical that is to call things out as you see them. When your leader is not on the field, then that means that the rest of the unit has to step up. And I think you're going to see folks like Bobby, you're going to see folks like EJ kind of take on those roles of trying to kind of diagnose what these offenses are giving them. I think to Silu's point, I don't even think he's close to 80%. I think he's probably somewhere close to like 60%, something like that. I think outside of that, we'll have to see who steps up. I mean, I'm really looking for probably more out of our D line than anything. I think that you're going to see a little bit more out of Kwity Paye. The lights come on for him. Obviously, DeForest Buckner, Grover, and then Yannick Ngakoue.
You're going right where I want to go next. Yannick Ngakoue comes over from the Las Vegas Raiders. Then, of course, you have Kwity Paye, who started kind of trying to get things going as the season was ending. How do you feel the addition of Ngakoue is going to have an effect on Kwity Paye in terms of maybe production-wise this season? Because I know they are ready and wanting him to kind of, take that next step. So, I mean, generally, how do you feel about that pairing going into this season?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm really excited. I mean, you have to think of I just think about the intangibles first. Like if you've been following Yannick's journey in the offseason, like he's already ingraining himself in the Colts community, in the community of Indianapolis, and he's doing things like, filling up Amazon lists for teachers. He is, going out to schools and showing his support. He's meeting fans in their backyard, things like that. That to me speaks volumes about how much he wants to be here. I think that will add to his drive. As far as Yannick and Quiddy, I mean, I'm thrilled for the prospect that he'll have someone to kind of push him. I think if you look at I'd probably say the last 4 games of the season last year with Quiddy, like the lights finally came on. You could see it on tape. He jumped off the line, finally got a QB pressure. He's getting sacks, and you're like, okay, this is what we drafted you for. Like, welcome to the party. We've been waiting on you. Thank you for arriving. I'm excited for him, and I'm really excited to see what Yannick's role will actually be in Gus Bradley's defense. Will he use him kind of further out, away from the line? Will he be, on the line in certain packages? That remains to be seen, obviously, and maybe I'm going a little deep here, but I really want to see what kind of effect that has on driving our pass rush, because the lack of it is astounding for the amount of talent that we have on the field. And I've pointed it out, numerous times before. If DeForest Buckner wasn't on the field, there was no pass rush, and that's a little alarming given the talent that's there. And I think I saw it the other day that the Colts were somewhat like 24th in the league in terms of pass rush win rate at 36%. And that's unacceptable. That's just not a winning combination.
No, not at all. I totally agree. Now, for the rest of the defensive line, I've heard it mentioned that, of course, behind the front four up there, the depth is still a little questionable. People are kind of wondering, what do they have? C. Lou, are you one of those people wondering what do they have behind that depth up front? Depth up front, I should say.
Personally, not really. And the reason that is, I mean, watching, just preseason, I like our second unit, like our defensive line, the second unit defensive line. To me, it seemed like they created more pressure in the preseason than our starting unit did. And they really got out to the ball. We still have Tyquan Lewis, who came back after the knee injury he suffered last year against the Titans in that second game. We drafted Eric Johnson, who he's going to be in that second unit as well. And then we still have Deo, who this year, he's one full season removed from that Achilles injury that he suffered, working out for the combine. So we still have, I believe we have some players behind our starting four. And I think in Gus Bradley's defense, having that rotation will be good because you always getting some fresh legs in there. So I don't have too many questions. We kept Ben. I probably gonna butcher his last name, Banago. Apologize if I butcher his last name, but we still have Ben. So I think we have at least 3 defensive ends on each side, and so that's one of the things that I really like. Then you still got Defoe in the middle, and you have Grover Stewart, who at this point in this defense they're going to be attacking more than just kind of sitting back waiting for people to come to them. They're attacking this time, so that's what Gus Bradley's system brings. So as long as they're doing their job and our linebackers are holding up in the back end, I really have no issues with our defensive line.
All right. Well, hey, we've gone through pretty much the whole offense and most of the defense, but of course, we can't forget about the secondary. Of course, rookie Nick Cross more than likely will be starting at safety, and then you have another gentleman that will be coming off a neck injury trying to start. But there's more. There's Mr. Staphon Gilmore coming over from the Carolina Panthers. Now, he is a former All-Pro, so we need not to forget that, people. But is he the same All-Pro we want to see? Inquiring minds want to know. But we'll see what happens. Of course, we do have Kenny Moore as well. Kenny Moore is definitely one of the best slot corners in the NFL. But who do we have on the outside on the other side? See, look, I'm going to ask you, who do you think is the other corner to step up over there?
The other corner I believe that's going to be over there is Brandon Faison. I think that Isaiah Rodgers getting a concussion week 1 of the preseason, I think that kind of affected his chances of starting in the defense, to start the regular season. Eventually, I think he takes the spot from Brandon, but as of right now, I think Brandon Faison has that he's going to be the other corner on the opposite side, and then Isaiah Rodgers will step up into that position eventually. But Brandon, he's played in Gus Bradley's system. He played in Vegas last year with Gus Bradley, so he knows the system. So I mean that gives him a leg up already. So hopefully, it won't be an issue. Hopefully, it won't be an issue in that system with him starting. But I really want to see how Isaiah Rodgers get into that starting position because he's talented. He has really good ball skills. He's fast as hell, and so I really can't wait for him to step up into that position. I think it's his time. I think it's his time.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is Faison's keeping the seat warm for him.
Pretty much.
All right. Now, of course, we didn't mention the safeties, and Nick Cross. I don't think some may have not thought he was going to start, but it's looking like he's going to be the starter there out of the University of Maryland with them fighting Terps. But I'm interested to see your thoughts on Mr. Nick Cross, Meg. I mean, he's a young rookie. You do have another young starting rookie safety in Petrie in Houston, which you all will see the first game. But, definitely interested to see what you think about this youngster starting his first game as a rookie.
Yes, you're going to get me really excited here. So I've been on the Nick Cross train for just, I don't know how long now. To be honest with you, let's go back a little bit to the draft. And I actually read this the other day, which I thought it was a really interesting tidbit. But when the Colts were drafting and they traded up to get Nick Cross, it's very uncharacteristic of them. Ballard doesn't go reaching for people. So if he's coming to get you, he absolutely believes in you. And the tidbit that came out was that he looked at his staff and he said, hey, if this guy were to come out in the 2023 draft, would he be a first-round pick? And they said, absolutely. He said, great, fantastic, and went and drafted him. So I think that that should speak to the kind of caliber player that he is. But I think all the way, if you saw any of the pre-draft, and combine footage from Nick, very well put together guy, speaks very highly of his skills to be able to go sideline to sideline, being able to cover tight ends, being able to cover slot wide receivers. You see that burst, which is really, really great to see. He's engaged at the line. I think the best play I saw was in Buffalo, the Buffalo preseason game. And James Cook was probably at the 6 or 7 yard line. I mean, Nick Cross comes flying out of nowhere and stuffs him right in the box. And it's a really good rep for a rookie to be able to see him kind of diagnose that play. There's another one, I think, in that game too, where you see him adjust as the ball's in the air and he's already moving before the wide receiver even got to the spot where he was supposed to be. And he ends up kind of coming over the top of the wide receiver and breaking up the play. Those are things that you want to see from your young safety like that. It's not a shock to me that he is potentially starting, at least with the unofficial depth chart. I have him on my list. He is my sleeper pick for the year to actually go out and win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Just want to let you know that you heard it here. That's probably going to be a stretch. I'm sure people are probably making all kinds of faces like Mike just did, but yeah, I know he was writing it down. Yeah, write that down. But no, honestly, that's just how much I kind of believe in this guy. And I think the Colts do too. It was an absolute steal at 96. And I think that, a lot of people are going to be scratching their heads and wondering how he fell that far.
All right. You heard it here first.
I was scratching my head wondering how he fell that far.
Exactly.
I was scratching my head wondering why nobody was talking about him the whole draft process. But hey.
It happens.
There you go. Now, of course, we've reached through all the questions that I had for this show. Oh, no. There is more. Got to talk about the defensive coordinator. You got Gus Bradley coming over from those Las Vegas Raiders to be the defense coordinator. Of course, he brings Ndakwe over, Faison over, and hopefully he brings something similar to the Seattle defense over if you're a Colts fan. So are you all kind of getting used to what he wants to do in terms of being an attacking style defense? Are you comfortable with the style of play that he's going to be bringing to this team? Either one of you can answer that one, if whoever wants to go first.
I'll let CeeLo take that one.
So, I mean, I still have some question marks about, his defense, just because what I've seen from the Raiders. Now, to be honest, the Seahawks, when they had him, I believe they had him for about 3 years before he went over to Jacksonville or something like that. At that time, the Seahawks defense, I think his last 2 years, they were like 1-2 in, overall defense. They were like the top 2 defenses, in the NFL at that point. But he had the players, that could play into his defensive scheme and that were talented enough to get stops. I mean, when you have a Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, a Richard Sherman, and then that defensive line that just got after quarterbacks.
Michael Bennett.
Michael Bennett. Yeah, like when you
have little shoulder pads.
So when you have that, that helps your defensive coordinator out a lot. So I'm hoping we have the players that have that skill set that can play in that defense. One of the things I did see during the preseason was that, the run game was kicking our behinds in the preseason. But it was a bend but don't break defense. They bowed their backs and did what they needed to do when teams got on the goal line, to force, some field goals. So that was good to see as well. But I would rather just not give up the yards, so that way they could just punt. But it is what it is. But I think with Shaq out there, that changes a lot with the run game as well. So I think because he is the voice of the defense, that he will get people in the right positions. He's the vocal leader of the defense. And so with him out there, and then with Staphon Gilmore on the outside, who I still believe has a lot of good football left in him. I think we'll be all right. So the questions will be answered come September 11th. We'll see what happens, man.
All right. Now, of course, for the long haul, how do you see kind of the players and the defense kind of settling in with each other? Do you see it happening earlier on, or do you kind of see it happening more towards, maybe mid-season, perhaps, some kind of settling in with this style of defense? Not a lot of changeover of players and different style of defense. Some players don't take to it as quickly as others. How do you see that going, Meg?
Oh, I'm concerned about that. I've spoken at length about our inability to start fast, and it doesn't help when you've got a new defensive coordinator on who's implementing a new scheme. Yeah, I've said it before, and I think my mentions have been in ruins for days now about saying, and they probably will be in ruins for the next couple of weeks. But I actually have the Colts losing the first 2 games. And people are just like, what? Are you serious? You cannot be, like, all kinds of things have been said in my mentions. But the fact remains, the Colts start slow. They historically start slow under Frank Reich. Last year, we were 0-3 before we beat the Dolphins. Like, just could not finish games. And even when we got out fast, we just collapsed. Like, it didn't matter. It really didn't matter. So I do expect a couple of games to get there. And to CeeLo's point, I'm glad he said it, because I was going to if he didn't. If you watched in the preseason, yeah, the run was absolutely giving us fits, for lack of a better phrase. It was definitely a bend, don't break. And thankfully, the Colts did better once they got to the red zone, but you don't want it to get there. Like, get off the field, force a fourth down, like punt, like get off the field. That's what we want. And I think that it's going to take some time. When you don't have Shaq on the field, yeah, he's one of your closers that I like to call, to kind of create that disruption there when an offense is rolling. So you're going to have somebody step up in that role. I'd be curious to see if it doesn't take us 4 or 5 games to really get to that gelling point. So sorry, Colts fans, realist here, but this is where I see it.
Gotcha. Now, boy, oh boy, that's going to be interesting. I will say that, I may need to send, or y'all may need to basically maybe get some tones, perhaps, because they're going to kind of keep you on your toes, keep your tummies kind of dancing a little bit, trying to figure out what's going on. But That's just me kind of thinking a little outside of the box. Maybe Tom's gonna want to do a commercial on the show since I did kind of give him a shout out. But
Oh my goodness.
that's either here nor there. But of course, we don't ever end the show this way. Of course, that's all the questions I had in terms of for the, kind of the general portion of the show. But we also play a game on this show. We have 5 questions. These questions will all be centered around the Indianapolis Colts. And there will be an answer. I need one answer. I need you to stick to that answer. I need you to go with it. I need you to feel it in your mind, soul, and spirit. Are you both ready?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm ready. Yeah.
All right. Well, here we go. First one up. Staphon Gilmore, more or less than 4 interceptions this year?
Less.
Yeah, I'm also going to say less.
Okay. All right. Here we go. More possible. Alec Pierce getting 600 yards or 700 yards receiving, or Paris Campbell playing 16 games this year?
I'm going Alec Pierce.
I'm going Alec Pierce as well.
Alec Pierce.
Oh boy.
Man, 15 games in 3 years.
I think that's the trauma. That is the trauma speaking. We're just like, oh. I mean, I believe in him. I really do. But yeah, I'm sorry, Pierce.
All right. Over or under 25 touchdown passes for Matt Ryan this season?
Over.
Yeah, I'll take over. I'll take the over.
I saw you thinking about that when you're probably thinking about Jonathan Taylor running the football a little bit more, correct?
No, I was actually thinking about his touchdown numbers from the last several years. Like, you haven't seen anything over that since maybe 2018, and then before that it was 2016, where I think he had 35. So that's where I was. I think he had 20 last year. I might be off by a little.
He had 20 last year, and then he had 26 in 2020.
So yeah, that's where I kind of get a little pause, but that's where I was thinking.
Okay. All right. We got 2 pass rushers. Which one's going to have the more effect in terms of stat-wise on the other? Kwity Paye or Ndakwe? Which one's going to have more sacks?
I'm going Yannick.
All right. Who you got, Meg?
Yeah, give me Yannick.
She doesn't sound
And
enthused about that.
I love Kwity Paye, so I'm a big fan. So that's where I was like, but yeah, I think that's why you brought Yannick here.
Okay. All right. And the last one. You're not gonna like this one. Colts defense, stock up or stock down compared to last season's squad and how they ended the season?
I'm going to say stock up, mainly for the simple fact that, like, I think that bitter taste from last year is still in their mouths. If you think about Baltimore game, Tampa Bay game, those games, specifically the Baltimore game is one I'm really thinking about. Those kind of games where they've just kind of lost their way. And you also think about the Jacksonville game. Yeah, that's still fresh on their minds.
I agree. I'm with Meg on that one. Stock up. They back for blood. They trying to get it back in blood this year.
Oh man, look, we ain't quoting Pooh Shiesty up in here, man. Come on. But
you had to.
No, I'm kidding. Hey, well, that's 5 questions. We got our answers, and that is the end of the show. I want to thank my guest, C. Lou from the Drop Balls Podcast, the incredible Meg from the Indy Intercept Podcast. I want to give the floor to both of you. I'm going to start with you, Meg, because it's ladies first. The floor is yours. Talk about what all you have going on and where people can find you on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have quite a bit going on. So I will first shout out CeeLo and I. We do spaces every Wednesday evening, about 8:30 Eastern time, Horseshoe Pride space. And then after every game this season, it's been a really fun experience, and he's kindly taking me under his wing. So I'm happy to be the wing woman there and facilitate those spaces. So that's been great. I think outside of that, I've been writing for the IndyIntercept.com, so managing editor there. And also you can find me at another site called Murphy's Multiverse. I do sports writing there, just general NFL column every day called the Morning After Huddle. And I'm trying to think. That might be everything that I have going on right now. And definitely just started the Indy Intercept podcast. So you're going to see episode 2 come out here shortly after the game. Won't make any promises when and exactly it'll be dropped, but it'll be pretty soon after this week's game. And then finally, you can find me on Twitter. It's at the Megan Hall.
All right. See, Lou, she sounds like me a little bit. Got a lot going on. But
she does, man. She does.
But go ahead, man. The floor is all yours, man.
Yeah, so y'all can find me on Twitter at DropBallsPod. Like Meg said, we do run Horseshoe Pride on Twitter as well. Every Wednesday afternoon, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. As well as we are going to start doing it post game after the Colts games as well. So that way we can kind of just break down what happened. Win, lose, or draw, we're going to be on there. Hopefully we don't lose week 1. I understand it's a possibility. Hopefully we don't, because I don't want the Texans fans in our space, going off. so hopefully that does not happen. But yeah, I be on Twitter all the time. I talk trash on Twitter. I take the trash back, when people want to talk trash as well. So you can find me there. And my podcast is posted on every page or every major podcast platform: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and yeah, Spotify, all of that. Drop Balls Pod. Look me up, follow everything, and it's football season, so we back in the full swing of things, man.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming on, talking a little Colts with me. Of course, I didn't get a record prediction. I'm gonna go 11-6. I mean, what you got, CeeLou?
So I've been saying 11-6, 12-5. That's where I see us at.
Okay, Meg.
Yeah, I think if everything goes right, and given a little hiccups along the way, 12-5 is my ceiling. My floor is for us to end up 9-8 again.
Oh boy! Now if they go 9-8, you might be pulling hair out, and CeeLou might be pulling hair out too.
Definitely, and I already don't have that much,
Definitely.
so I need the Colts to come through.
I hear you there. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. You've been tuning in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.